Thank you. On this beautiful day, let's jump right in. This is a picture of the ATRES project, which was recently completed, which we did in Energyville, Vito, where we calculated possible decarbonization pathways for industry towards 2050 to a whole range of industries. What I want to show you with this picture is that you clearly see that this region, the Belgian, Netherlands, North Rhine-Westphalia region is really a big region in terms of industrial activity. So we are not a small country in terms of industry. Then, this picture appeared before and is a reason what do you do with hydrogen. I will be very short on the topic. If you heat your homes with hydrogen, you're 4 times less efficient than doing it with a heat pump. If you drive with hydrogen, you're 2.5 to 3 times less efficient than if you drive direct electricity. Now you can discuss a lot about that. It trickles down into the business case, and what we see, you should prioritize hydrogen for industrial applications on the big background of our energy system. It doesn't mean small volumes. The volumes of hydrogen that are needed are incredibly big. If you look to the renewable, if you would produce them green, the renewable capacity you need. But you don't need them for all applications. So that's where you see the hydrogen, not for transport and for not for transport or heating, but rather for industrial processes where you don't have easy electricity alternatives available. And I'm very happy that this was also picked up in the text that you have received today by the BBL. Then this is a result of our study that we published last year. Where do you get the hydrogen from? This is the yellow one, is the hydrogen as it is today, possibly with CCS in between. And you see from 2040, you see the electrolyzer hydrogen coming up. And if you assume that you can import very cost effectively hydrogen, then in this scenario, this is an assumption. What if the hydrogen import is very cheap? Then you see you need quite a lot of hydrogen for import. But if you don't assume this, then you rather switch, the model switches to local electrolysis. So this graph tells us 2 things. The balance between import and electrolysis locally is very dependent on the assumptions you make. And very important, before 2030, you don't have an upscaling of green hydrogen. So why not? Basically, because we don't have the electricity for it. We are still struggling to build out our electricity system. This is a graph which is ancient. Somebody who follows the hydrogen world, 2019, a lot of it has changed then. This is from the IEA, and what you see on this graph are 2 things. First of all, electrolyzer needs 3,000 to maybe 4,000 hours, but from 3,000 hours to be commercially viable. You're not running it on surplus renewables that you only have for 500 hours a day, such as the solar peak in the middle of the day. You need more operating hours to have it commercially viable. And secondly, the most important factor for the cost of your hydrogen that comes out of your electrolysis is the electricity you put in. This is more, and this is what this graph shows. If you vary the costs of electricity, you get a big difference in cost of hydrogen. If you vary the investment cost, in the end, it's a quite small difference, provided that you have enough renewable electricity available. So I think that's a very insightful graph. To underline the importance of having a lot of renewable electricity available, I once made this thought sketch. What if you have with gas produce hydrogen, as it is today, with steam methane reforming, and you use your electricity directly? You have around 10 kilograms CO2 per kilogram hydrogen. But if you have your electricity, you produce green hydrogen with your electricity, but at the same time you need gas to produce electricity, then you have 20 kilograms CO2 per kilogram hydrogen. That's why it's important to have first enough renewable electricity available before you start reducing the emissions. So first, a lot of renewables available. That's the key message of this slide. How much renewable electricity we have available? How much hours a year in 2030 do we have renewable electricity abundantly available? This is a result of a few studies where this is the TYNDP, the 10-year network development plans, which says 1800 hours. If we calculate it, the ELIA study has a bit less, 4000, 1000 hours. So in conclusion, we saw the slide before, you need 3000 hours for commercially viable operation. We don't have it by 2030. We struggle to have sufficient renewable electricity. If you look to the Repower EU plan, the model, what the European ambitions for Repower EU, they assume 5000 operating hours for electrolyzers in 2030. Why the big difference? The answer is because part of it is also political choice. Part of it is we need gas, we have a problem and we need to replace gas with gas, and we need to have a lot of hydrogen in our system. And I think this model that Europe uses, the PRIMES model, to calculate all this, it's not accessible to researchers like me or you, it's not publicly available, and there's really a lot to do to increase the transparency of the whole climate and energy system modeling process and all the choices that are made in there. Remember the slide that I've shown before, transport and heating. It's much more efficient from a system point of view to do it direct electricity. You see here the Commission, Repower EU, what they did, Fit for 55, the first 55% reduction targets in 2030. And then after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, they published Repower EU, which was an amendment. And there you see a lot of renewable hydrogen being, the ambitions increased. I had here industrial heat, transport, that's ×5, that's ×3. Then even blending in the gas grid, burning hydrogen together with natural gas, which is not the most high value application of hydrogen, to say the least. So that's, I think, on a European level also, you need to target hydrogen for the most applications where you really need it, where there's no electricity alternative. And if you really want to take the 2030 targets seriously, with the scarce renewable electricity we have available, we need to use it as to create as much emission reductions as we can. Hydrogen via shipping. We looked at a lot of the studies, including the Import Coalition, and there we see a bit of a problem. We see shipping of hydrogen derivatives such as ammonia and methanol. This can be commercially viable, but cracking it back into hydrogen seems to be a problem. We see that the willingness to pay of steel and chemical industries of this hydrogen that is transported by ship is not high enough to really have a structural demand and supply balance. I look very much forward to the debate later to discuss on this. And I very much hope that I'm wrong here, but I'm afraid getting ammonia in a ship, cracking it into hydrogen and then using the hydrogen, that will be structurally not cost competitive with alternatives. What option does it left? Out of the blue, it's a bit of a play of words, out of the blue hydrogen, but we're not using colors today, we're using fossil hydrogen. I like it, by the way, because hydrogen doesn't have a color, so it's very good that you have an alternative for it. Blue hydrogen, there are some activities, and we see some activities on the horizon. And the inconvenient truth is that blue hydrogen or fossil hydrogen, where you capture the emissions, is the only one which really has the potential of reducing emissions by 2030 and being cost competitive for the industries. So I think it's, I would love to discuss further about it. The document focuses a lot on import from Spain, but also there are problems, and I'd love to discuss more during the debate. But blue hydrogen and CCS in general, if we look to our models, if you, for example, you probably heard the news about the klimaatzaak, that we need to reduce in Belgium 55% of emissions by 2030, all emissions. In our models we see CCS as the only alternative, and if you say CCS, we don't want CCS, then industrial activity that disappears is the only alternative how this 55% target can be reached, because it's incredibly challenging. And on this depressing note, I would like to end my presentation, and I look forward to the debate. Thank you.